My parents sold my $3,600 PC for $1,200 to buy my sister designer clothes. But when a lawyer threatened them with theft charges, I got it back, moved out in secret, and blocked them forever. I'm 22 years old. I work as a freelance graphic designer and video game streamer. And what happened a few months ago basically made me realize that my family has never seen me as a real person with valid needs. You know, just as the son who doesn't matter as much compared to my younger sister. I guess I should start from the beginning. I mean, it's not like this was something new. The favoritism toward Vanessa was always there since we were kids. But I never imagined they would go as far as to literally steal something I had built with my own hands and my own money. I grew up being the oldest son, and when Vanessa was born, I was like 4 years old, and from the moment she came home, it was obvious she was the star of the show. Don't get me wrong, at first it didn't bother me, like, she was my little sister and I loved her, but over the years things got increasingly unbalanced. Vanessa always got what she wanted, always. I'd ask for a console for Christmas and they'd tell me no, that it was too expensive, that I had to learn the value of money. But she'd ask for a new iPhone every year and it would magically appear wrapped under the tree. My parents always had this attitude that I should be the responsible one, the mature one, the one who didn't need attention or help, while Vanessa could do whatever she wanted and they'd be there applauding her. In high school, I started working part-time at an electronics store because I wanted to have my own money, and that's where I completely fell in love with computers and gaming. I used every cent I earned to buy components, learn how to build PCs, and basically become an expert on the subject. My parents never understood why I cared so much. My dad always said I was wasting time with video games instead of getting a real job, and my mom just wasn't interested. But I was passionate about it, you know what I mean? It wasn't just playing, it was the whole community, the technology, the art of building something from scratch. And when I finished high school, I started doing freelance graphic design, because it turned out I was pretty good at editing and creating visual content. And I also started streaming on Twitch. Nothing super big, but I had a decent audience of like 500 people who watched regularly. My parents still didn't take it seriously. They basically treated me like I was an unemployed guy living in their basement playing video games all day, despite the fact that I literally showed them my income and explained that this was my career. But well, Vanessa was studying marketing at a super expensive private university they paid for completely, and that was an achievement they bragged about to all their friends. The thing is that for 2 years, from when I turned 20 until a few months ago when I turned 22, I saved every cent I could to build my dream PC. I'm talking about an absolute beast, Ryzen 9 processor, RTX 4080, graphics card, 64 gigabytes of RAM, massive SSD storage, 32-inch curved 4K monitor, the whole setup, complete with custom RGB lighting, mechanical keyboard, high-precision gaming mouse, professional microphone for streaming, high-definition webcam, everything. I spent exactly $3,600 on that machine, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it was my pride and joy. I had built it myself. I had researched each component for weeks. Every cable was perfectly organized. I had a liquid cooling system I installed myself after watching like 50 tutorials. It was perfect. With that PC, my freelance work exploded because I could do renders faster, edit 4K videos without anything lagging, and my streams looked professional. Like, the image and audio quality was incredible. I started making more money, my channel grew, I got some corporate clients for graphic design, and honestly, I was at the best moment of my career. My best friend Austin, who's also a gamer and streamer, always told me he was super proud of me and to keep going, and that meant a lot because my family never said anything like that to me. So we get to about 3 months ago. Vanessa had just turned 18 and was obsessed with designer brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, all that stuff. Every time I went home, I heard my mom talking to her about outfits for some university event, or about bags she needed, or shoes all her friends had. I basically lived in my room working and streaming, trying to save to eventually move to my own place, but I was still at my parents' house because rent in our city is ridiculously expensive. One Friday afternoon, I went out with Austin to go to the movies and eat something, basically to clear my head a bit because I'd been working on a big project all week. We spent like 5 hours out, and when I got home around 9 at night, I went up to my room and my blood literally froze. My PC wasn't there. The desk was completely empty. The monitor, the tower, the keyboard, the mouse, the headphones, everything had disappeared. Only the cables hanging, and the marks in the dust where my stuff had been remained. I couldn't process what I was seeing. I mean, my first thought was that we'd been robbed, that someone had broken into the house while I wasn't there and taken my equipment. I ran downstairs screaming, "Mom, Dad, they stole my computer," and I found them in the living room watching TV like nothing. My mom didn't even turn to look at me when I told her. She just said, "Oh yeah, your dad sold it this afternoon." Just like that, super casual. Like she'd told me they threw out an old magazine. I stood there unable to speak for like 10 seconds. They sold my PC. My PC. The one I bought with my money. The one I built with my own hands. The one I used to work and make money. They sold it. Without asking me. Without telling me anything. When I could finally speak, I asked them, "What do you mean you sold it? Why did you do that?" And my dad turned off the TV, looked at me and said, "Vanessa needed money to buy clothes for her university event next week, and since you weren't using the computer at that moment, we decided to sell it to help her." Can you believe it? I wasn't using it at that moment. As if the fact that I went out for 5 hours meant the computer was available for them to sell. I told them, "That computer costs $3,600. I bought it with my money. I use it to work every day, and you sold it to buy Vanessa designer clothes." My mom shrugged and said, "Well, you got the money easily with your little games. You can buy another one. Vanessa only has this one chance to go to this event and she needs to look good." The rage I felt at that moment. I don't even know how to describe it. I felt like I was going to explode. My hands were shaking and I wanted to scream until I had no voice left. I asked them how much they got paid for my PC, and my dad said, $1,200, which is a good price considering it was used. My equipment that was less than 6 months finished being built, that was in perfect condition, that was worth $3,600. They sold it for $1,200 and thought it was a good deal. I told them who bought it, that I needed that person's phone number, and my dad gave me a piece of paper with a scribbled number. I went up to my room, well, to my now empty room, and called Austin because I needed to talk to someone who wouldn't make me feel like I was crazy. I told him everything, and he was as angry as I was. He told me that was basically theft, and that I needed to get my PC back immediately and then think about moving out as soon as possible because my parents were completely out of control. He was right. He's honestly always right about these things. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I stayed awake looking for all the purchase receipts for every component of my PC. I took pictures of everything. I organized all the evidence that I had paid for that computer with my own money. And the next morning, I went downstairs and asked my dad for the address of the person who bought my PC. At first, he didn't. I want to tell me. He said it was already done and to stop being dramatic. But I told him if he didn't give me the information, I was going to call the police and report the theft. And then he did give me the address. I drove like 30 minutes to a house on the outskirts of the city and knocked on the door. A guy about 40 years old opened, and I explained the situation. Showed him all my receipts and told him my parents had no right to sell my property. The guy got super uncomfortable, said he didn't know anything about that my parents told him it was their computer and they were selling it because they needed the money. I asked him if he could give it back to me, and he said he'd already given the $1,200 to my parents and couldn't just give me the computer, that if I returned the money to him, we could make the exchange. The problem was, I didn't have $1,200 in available cash at that moment. I had savings, but they were earmarked for an apartment deposit eventually, and besides, the computer was mine. I shouldn't have to buy it back. But the guy wasn't at fault either. Technically, he had bought it in good faith. I told him to give me a few days to resolve the situation and please not to sell it to anyone else. And he agreed because I think he felt bad about the whole situation. I went back home and looked for Vanessa. I found her in her room trying on new clothes, and when I say new, I mean she had like 10 bags from designer stores on her bed. I asked her if she knew that Mom and Dad had sold my computer to pay for her shopping, and she barely looked at me, said, "Yeah, Mom told me, and it was just a computer. I don't know why you're so angry." I told her that computer was worth $3,600 and I used it to work, and she literally laughed and said, "Well, maybe you should get a real job instead of playing video games all day." At that moment, I realized Vanessa not only felt no guilt, but genuinely saw nothing wrong with what had happened. To her, I was just her loser brother who wasted time with video games, and my things had no real value. It wasn't even worth arguing with her. I left her room and locked myself in mine, and basically spent the next few hours researching my legal options and talking to Austin about what to do. That night, my parents organized a family dinner, like they wanted us all to sit together and act like nothing had happened. I sat at the table and waited for them to serve the food, and when everyone was there, I told them, very calmly, "I need you to give me $1,200 in cash before Monday so I can get my computer back. Because if not, I'm going to have to take legal action against you for selling my property without my consent." My mom dropped her fork and told me, how dare I threaten them, that they were my parents and everything they did was for our good. I explained to them, trying to stay calm, even though inside I was boiling, that what they did was illegal, that I have all the receipts proving I bought that computer, and that a lawyer already confirmed I have a solid case if I decide to proceed legally. My dad turned red with rage and started yelling at me, saying I was ungrateful, that I lived under their roof and ate their food and had no right to talk to them like that. I told him I paid rent, even though they'd never asked for it. I gave them like $300 a month to help with expenses, and that also if they wanted, I could move out immediately and cut all contact with them. Vanessa, of course, started crying, saying I was ruining everything, that she'd only wanted to look good at her university event, and I was selfish for making such a big drama. I told her to return the clothes and use that money to pay me, but she screamed that she'd already cut the tags and couldn't return them, which was probably a lie because I doubt she'd had time to use everything in a single day. The dinner ended with my dad saying they were going to give me the money, but after this I was on my own, not to count on their support for anything anymore. I accepted those terms without problem because, honestly, I was already fed up with the whole situation. The next day, they gave me a check for $1,200. I cashed it at the bank, went to the house of the guy who had bought my PC, and got my equipment back. And when I got back to reinstall everything in my room and turned it on, I felt huge relief, but also deep sadness, because I realized my relationship with my family had basically ended. My parents basically completely ignored me. Vanessa sent me text messages saying I was a jerk and I'd ruined her life, because now mom and dad were angry all the time. I focused on working as much as possible. I accepted all the freelance projects I could and streamed almost every day to make extra money. Austin helped me look for apartments, and we found a small but decent studio about 40 minutes away that cost $850 a month, which was expensive, but I could afford it if I kept my income stable. I made the decision to move out without telling my parents anything. For like 2 months, I started taking my stuff out little by little, like I'd take boxes to Austin's house and store them in his garage. Clothes, books, decorations, personal things, everything that was mine. I left my big furniture because technically my parents had bought it for me years ago, and I didn't want to give them more reasons to say I was stealing something from them, although ironically, they had stolen from me. During that time, my mom had a conversation with me where she casually mentioned that selling my PC had been Vanessa's idea originally. She said Vanessa had suggested that I probably wouldn't notice if they sold it for a day, because I was always so into my work that I didn't pay attention to what was happening in the house. That was like a stab in the stomach, knowing that my sister had actively planned to rob me. I didn't say anything at that moment, but it basically confirmed I was making the right decision by leaving. The day I finally officially moved out was a Saturday. My parents had gone out with Vanessa to something, and Austin came with his truck. We disassembled my PC very carefully, packed everything that was left, and in like 3 hours I'd emptied my room. I left a note on the kitchen table that basically said, "I moved out. This is my decision and it's final. Don't try to contact me unless it's to genuinely apologize and change your attitude. Take care." Just that simple. The next 24 hours my phone didn't stop ringing. My mom called me like 20 times, sent me text messages saying, how dare I leave like that I was a coward, that I destroyed the family. My dad sent me a message telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life, and when I failed and couldn't pay my rent not to come asking them for help. Vanessa wrote me a complete essay about how I was the worst person in the world and how I'd ruined her relationship with our parents because now they were stressed because of me. I waited like a week and then sent a message to my parents, just to them, not to Vanessa. I told them, "All my life, you've treated me like I didn't matter, like my achievements weren't real, like my things and my work had no value. The fact that you sold my computer without my permission to finance Vanessa's shopping was the straw that broke the camel's back. I need space and time to decide if I want to have any relationship with you in the future. For now, please respect my decision to keep my distance." They didn't respond. Like a month later, a family friend who's known me since I was a kid contacted me and told me my parents were going through financial problems because they'd overextended themselves, paying for all of Vanessa's things: the private university, the designer clothes, the new car they bought her, everything. Apparently, they'd taken out loans and were behind on payments, and they'd sold my PC because they genuinely needed the money but didn't want to admit it. That explained some things, but honestly didn't change anything. If they had money problems, they should have talked to me or cut Vanessa's ridiculous lifestyle, not rob me. Like a month ago, my mom sent me a message inviting me to Vanessa's birthday dinner. She was turning 19. The message was super casual, like nothing had happened. Like, "Hi, Zachary. I hope you're well. Your sister's birthday is Saturday at 7 at the Italian restaurant you like. It would be nice if you came." I didn't respond immediately. I took like 2 days thinking about what to do. I finally responded, "Thanks for the invitation, but I'm not going. I haven't received any apology from anyone in the family for what happened. And until that happens, I'm not interested in pretending we're a happy family." My mom called me immediately after I sent that message, and we had a conversation that was basically her yelling at me for 30 minutes. She told me I was resentful, that I was being immature, that Vanessa missed me, which I very much doubt, that I was the one destroying the family, that someday I was going to regret missing these important moments. I told her, very calmly, that the only person who should have regrets was her and Dad for how they treated me for years, that selling my computer was just the symptom of a much bigger problem, which was the obvious favoritism toward Vanessa. And until they recognized that and sincerely apologized, I had nothing more to talk about with them. She started crying and saying, "We always treated you both equally." That's not true. And when I started giving her specific examples of all the times they chose Vanessa over me, she hung up the phone. That was the last time I talked to my mom. I blocked my parents' and Vanessa's numbers on my phone because I needed peace of mind, and they clearly weren't going to give it to me. Austin told me I did the right thing. That family isn't just blood, but the people who really value and respect you. And if my parents couldn't do that, then they didn't deserve to be in my life. The last 3 months, living alone, have been the best of my life, honestly. My apartment is small, but it's mine. Nobody's going to come in and sell my stuff while I'm not there. Nobody's going to minimize my work or tell me I don't have a real job. My Twitch channel has grown to almost 1,000 followers, and I'm making enough money with streaming and freelance to live comfortably. Austin comes over often and we stream together, and I have an online community that genuinely appreciates what I do. I'm not angry at my parents or Vanessa anymore, honestly. I just feel a kind of indifference, like they're people who were in my life and aren't anymore, and I'm okay with that. Maybe someday they'll understand what they did wrong and apologize, and maybe at that moment I'll consider having contact with them again. But I'm not holding my breath waiting for that to happen. Last week I was organizing my desk and found an old photo of when Vanessa and I were kids, like from 15 years ago, where we were at the park and she was hugging me. I stared at that photo for a long while and felt a weird sadness, because that version of us doesn't exist anymore, and probably will never exist again. But at the same time, I realized it's okay to let go of things that no longer serve you, even if those things are your family. I put the photo in a drawer and went on with my day, and I guess that sums up where I am now. I no longer look back with anger, but simply move forward, building the life I want.